Hi, I'm Kat, and this is my podcast at Soul Level. It is my intention for this podcast to inspire my listeners to be brave and courageous, to build their own lives in a way that makes them truly, truly happy, healthy, satisfied, and at peace. I will do this by sharing my own stories and how I go about building the life of my dreams, as well as through the stories of others inspiring guests. So welcome. May this podcast be an inspiration on your path. Hello, welcome to the At Soul Level podcast. Today I have Melanie Stevens as a guest. Melanie is a spiritual life coach, Reiki master, and tarot reader from Devon, UK. Her business, Melanie Stevens Spiritual Guidance and Healing, offers Reiki sessions in person and by distance, tarot readings, and a growing library of courses. So welcome, Mel. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I would love to ask you how you started on your, doing what you're doing right now. So if there is any story behind it, would you share it with us, please?
Sure. So, in terms of my sort of spiritual path, if you like, when I was much younger, as in 14, maybe 15, I was quite into palmistry. One of my best friend's mum was a palm reader, which is so cool. And she taught me, so I was quite into that. And I had a tarot deck. And then I was fascinated by spiritual sort of processes and things like that. And then I lost touch with it when I was about 15, 16, and didn't revisit anything like that until much, much later. I did have an interest in mediumship and things like that, but I didn't have readings. I didn't see a medium until I was in my 30s. I didn't have a tarot reading from anybody. So I sort of returned to my path, if you like, 3 years ago, and I went to a spiritual fair with one of my friends, and I've always been interested in the crystals and things like that, but I didn't know what they did other than looked nice. So I went to this spiritual fair and I had a Reiki session from somebody. I'd heard about Reiki, didn't really know what it was, didn't really worry too much about the ins and outs of it. I just thought, let's try it, see what it feels like. And I had this Reiki session. It was beautiful and relaxing. Felt nice afterwards and relaxed, didn't think too much more of it. But then the same afternoon, I just felt, and now I recognize my energy was raised, my vibration was raised. I felt different. And I practically skipped my way home that afternoon. And I just wondered, wow, what was that? What did that actually do? And I'm very inquisitive. I like to learn. I love studying. I love courses. I like to understand how things work. So I had another Reiki session after that. And the same thing happened. I just felt blissful and light and excited and joyful, and couldn't really work out why. My logical brain was sort of saying, well, why? You've just laid down and somebody's put their hands over you. How has that worked? So that's what led me to actually learning Reiki for myself. I wanted to be able to do that for myself initially, not to heal other people, but just to learn more about it. Fell in love with it like many Reiki practitioners do, and decided that I wanted to learn it to deliver it to other people. Not necessarily as a business, family and friends. I was working full time as an HR manager. I had no intentions to set up a spiritual business. That came later. But the more I learned about it, the more I studied it, the more I enjoyed it. I felt like, oh, I could actually do this for other people as a little sort of sideline to my day job. And things progressed, and I felt so not unhappy with what I'd got, but I felt like I was falling out of alignment with the life I'd got and moving into a different space energetically. So the Reiki became more of an obsession, really, to get that feeling back was just so lovely. And that started me on my healing journey to removing blocks to my own happiness, removing things that no longer served me, and getting that light, beautiful, blissful feeling that I had from the Reiki. And then as things progressed, I discovered crystals, I studied crystal Reiki, I discovered oracle decks and tarot decks and started learning the tarot, and I've just non-stop studied since then, and learned all these beautiful things. And some things I've learned and felt like, yeah, I enjoyed that, but that's not part of my path. And some things have stuck, and the Reiki is stuck, and the tarot has stuck. But equally, I've got so much knowledge to share. That's why I decided then to add that spiritual life coaching and to start producing courses in addition. So I've got the 3 services that I produce now.
Thank you. That sounds great. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what you offer now. So, of course, you mentioned the Reiki, tarot readings, and spiritual life coaching. But yeah, if you would you be able to tell us a little bit more as to how those sessions would look like, and maybe what could people expect if they wanted to come and see you?
Sure. So with the Reiki, I do offer in-person sessions. I've converted a room in my house into a therapy room. So I live in Bovey Tracy, just on the edge of Dartmoor, and I welcome people here into my home for Reiki if they'd like it in person. But I have many clients who are miles and miles away from me, so I also offer it by distance, and it's something that you're taught when you're taught Reiki. I think it's at Reiki stage 2. You're taught how to send Reiki by distance, so you don't have to have somebody in the same space. And the 2 sessions, they do differ a little. When somebody comes to me here, I'm able to control and set the space. So I cleanse the room with smoke or with sound, and cleanse the energy of the space that they're going to be coming into. I then welcome the person in, and we go through, we have a conversation, and I need to ask a few questions around what they're hoping to, that the Reiki will help them with. By them talking to me about any issues or challenges they're facing in their lives, I'm able to understand where that blockage may be in their energy. Usually there's an issue with one of the chakras. And then I put on some nice music. I either put some essential oils into the diffuser, or I might burn incense, depending on the client's preference, making it a nice relaxed environment. They lay down on a couch. It's a bit like a massage couch, same sort of thing. And then I will generally hover my hands over their body, and the Reiki energy comes through my hands and into them. So they're not getting my energy. I don't have Reiki within me. It's channeled through me and into them. Most of the positions are hands off, which is ideal for people who don't like to be touched. There are people who don't like massage and that sort of therapy because they're not keen on people's hands touching them. So most of the positions are hands off. I work my way through cleansing and opening the chakras, and then sending Reiki. I tend to work head to foot and send it everywhere, but I will concentrate more on the areas that I believe there is an issue, a blockage, or there's something not quite right, usually one of the chakras. If they're receiving Reiki by distance, they stay in their home and I work from mine. So I just have a conversation with them beforehand to find out what it is that they want to use the Reiki for. I will use crystals. I actually do use crystals in person as well. I've got some flat crystals that lay flat on the body. When I'm sending it by distance, I set them up in a grid. So I set the intention for the crystal grid, and then using the language of Reiki, if you like, the symbols, I connect energetically to the recipient, and I send Reiki to them by distance. I can't control their environment, but I do ask them to try to make sure they're somewhere they're not going to be disturbed. If they can, put some nice music on, make sure they're warm and comfortable, and just sit and feel the difference in their energy when I connect in with them. And then I send them a photograph afterwards of the crystal grid that I've set up for them, and anything that I might have picked up on in the session, and ask them for their feedback as well. So that is the Reiki that I offer. I am also going to start teaching Reiki as well, and will probably be looking to host my courses on Udemy. Then with tarot, I do a tarot reading. Again, people can come to me for tarot readings, but generally I do them remotely for people, and I record the session, the audio file. I could start recording a video, but it's not always easy to send large files by email. So the audio
Yeah.
is usually manages to get through. And I take a photo of the cards laid out in the spread that I've chosen and send all of that over with the audio recording of the reading to the client.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like with the Reiki, I am going to start teaching tarot as well. So that's coming up in the near future. And then with the spiritual coaching, that's mainly at the moment what I'm focusing my courses around, is helping people to integrate different spiritual practices into their lives, helping people to self-heal and to bring balance into their lives. It might be through meditation, it might be through learning some of the things I do when I sit with crystals or when I do deliver Reiki to myself. So a lot of that is going to be through the courses, but I do want to start offering one-to-one coaching as well, which it kind of was already happening when people come for Reiki. So I want to be offering that as more of a standalone service that people can book 3 or 4 sessions with me. We meet, say, every week. It might be that one week I focus on doing a healing session with them. It might be that I do a tarot reading, but I'll be giving advice and sending them information and helping them to set up their own spiritual practices as well. So that's currently the full array of services that I offer.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for letting us know what there is on offer right now. And I was wondering if possibly you could tell us a little bit more about Reiki for those that maybe never had it before. How, and those that might be a little bit skeptical, perhaps. How does it work? What is the energy of Reiki, and how could it possibly work distance in distance by distance? Yeah, and what's the difference between that and in person? Yeah.
Okay, so Reiki is universal healing energy. So like I said before, it doesn't come from me. I don't store Reiki energy. It's available to everybody at any time, but they just need to learn how to access it and how to become a channel for it. And like with anything, you can read books, you can do courses, but you've got to practice. You've got to dedicate time to Reiki. You can't just expect to learn it and there we go, I'm going to be a wonderful Reiki master or Reiki practitioner. So learning Reiki, you basically become a channel for the healing energy. So when we say channel, we mean the healing energy comes through our body and out of our body again and into the person we're sending it to. So with Reiki, we use the hands of the practitioner and we call upon the ascended masters. So these are the Reiki masters that used to walk the earth who now reside in spirit. We call in the ascended masters and our own spirit guides to help us to connect to Reiki and to start the flow of Reiki. And at that point, the Reiki practitioner will feel usually heat, although everybody experiences it slightly different, but usually heat coming through the palms of their hands. And that's when they know they're connected. So you'll very often see a Reiki practitioner stand in like the prayer position at the start of the session. And if they go quiet, they're connecting into their guides, and silently in their mind they're sort of telepathically communicating with them to ask them to connect them to Reiki. And any other sort of opening prayer they may say, they've probably got their own little ritual of how to connect. The Reiki energy then flows through the palms of the practitioner into the body of the client. Now, we don't have to be touching the person's body. Energy is within us, but it's also outside of us. Our aura extends out several feet outside of the physical body. So we don't actually need to have our hands on. The only reason some of the positions I use are hands on is when it's not possible to not touch the client. So when I'm sending Reiki to the crown chakra, I start with my hands at the back of the head. And if someone's lying down, I've got to cup my hands under their head and hold their head in my hands. So obviously I can't do that without touching them. But most of the other positions are hands off. So obviously when you've got somebody in front of you, you can visualize the energy coming down through the hands and into the body. By distance, it's slightly different. So we connect through a special Reiki symbol, which we draw in front of us into the air. We connect to the person we're sending it to, and then we send the energy into the person by visualizing them in front of us. Now that works in with energy, it works in the same way as mediumship. It works in the same way as telepathy, things that people will have heard of and be familiar with. When we're connecting to somebody energetically, they don't have to physically be in front of us, because our energy can be anywhere it wants to be at any time. All it takes is thought. And this is proved when people, you might think of your best friend who lives in Australia who you haven't heard from for 13 years, and suddenly they message you and say, you just popped into my head, so I'm messaging you. They felt you in their energy because you're thinking about them. It's as if you're literally stood in their aura. And mediumship works in very much the same way. When you're connecting to people in the spirit world, they're not physically present with you in the room. They're on a different realm. But energetically, you blend with their energy and you connect with them. And this is all done through the power of the mind. And it's exactly the same with Reiki. We need to open up energetically. We say our opening prayer, we connect into our guides, and we need to set the intention that the energy is going to the person that we're working with. And it might be some Reiki practitioners might have a photo of the person in front of them, or if they know them really well, they'll visualize them in their head. But as long as you know who it is you're sending it to, you've got their name, you've got their details, it's going to go to the right person. Spirit sees everything, so they know what they're doing. And then we send the Reiki energetically to that person, and the person that's receiving it might feel changes in their energy at the time. Some people will say to me afterwards, oh, I felt really tingly throughout the whole session, and then suddenly I didn't feel tingly anymore. And I looked at the time and it was exactly an hour after you started. So they almost felt me disconnect. And that's how I experience it as well, sort of like tingles and heat. But it works in exactly the same way. The energy is being transmitted into the energetic field of the person that's receiving it, wherever they are in the world, which is brilliant because it means that Reiki can be sent anywhere. You don't have to be local.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask you about a couple of things that you mentioned in your previous answers. You have said that you connect with your spirit guides, and also I believe it was in relation to your courses that you are building some spiritual practices for people. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about your spiritual practice that you have personally, and what does spirituality mean to you really in general, and how do you incorporate that in your daily life?
Sure. So I've got a few things that I do on a regular basis. So I'll start with journaling. Every day I spend a few minutes in, it's called conscious creator energy. It's basically manifesting energy. And I will state out loud my intention for whatever it is I want to achieve. And that can be something really big, or it can be something quite minor. I might say, I've got a meeting today and I want it to go really well, or I really want a bigger house. And I'll state it in the present tense. So I'll say I have a bigger house, and thank you, universe, for helping me to delivering this to me, or something along those lines. So I spend a few minutes every day in that space of asking for what I want. It keeps me focused on my goals, big and small. And by stating the intention, it helps the universe to bring them to me. And I journal about them as well. So I'll write down what it is I'm asking for. And then on the back of that, I move into a space of gratitude of what I've already got, because being in a space of gratitude raises our vibration, and it helps bring more of the same sorts of things to you. If you're grateful for having a loving relationship, it will get more loving. If you're grateful for having wealth, you'll get more wealthy. When you're in that space of lack, you get more of that. So focusing on the law of attraction side of things is really important. And I make that a daily practice, 5 minutes a day, no more. It's the regularity that's more important than spending an hour a week. So I literally spend 5 minutes a day and I write everything down. I actually have a proper journal that's designed for that, but you can use a notebook. The act of writing things down, I feel, brings it into the reality of our 3D world, because you've written it in ink on paper and it makes it solid. So I really like writing when I journal. So that's one of my practices. I also do tarot readings for myself every single day. What do I need to know today, Spirit? What do I need to let go of, perhaps? What energy should I bring in today? Random questions, just whatever I feel at the time. If I'm feeling like I'm struggling, why am I struggling? What is it that's holding me back? And what do I need to do? Do I need to do some self-care? Do I need to release something? Do I need to feel a bit more confident about myself? Or, what advice have you got for me? So that's my tarot practice every day. Again, 5-10 minutes, no longer, but it's a regular practice. And then there's something else I do called GCP, which is Ground Cleanse Protects, that I do probably more than once a day. This is to keep my energy protected. And when you're an energy worker, it's really important that we protect ourselves, because if we're empathic, we'll pick up the energy of the people around us, and that can drag us down and make us feel lethargic and sluggish and depressed. So it's really important that we keep our energy high. And we do this through visualization, and you can find on YouTube many different meditations for protecting your energy. There's lots of ways of doing it, but for me, I keep it really simple, and I visualize roots coming out of my feet, plunging into the ground. That makes me feel stable and steady and grounded. Then I imagine I ask one of the elements. So usually I'll ask the element of air to blow through me and remove anything that isn't serving my highest good, or anything that I've taken on that doesn't belong with me. And I just state that out loud in the moment. And then I visualize, for me, it's a bubble around my aura. So I imagine this massive bubble appearing around me that's not a thin one that can be popped. It's like a rubber one. It's really thick. And I set the intention that any energy that isn't for my highest good bounces off that bubble and is sent away from me. And any energy that I'm surrounded with that I need for my highest good can come through the bubble and into my energetic body. And I just visualize and say that out loud every day, at least once a day. So that's my main spiritual practices. Obviously, I also do Reiki sessions on myself. It doesn't necessarily happen daily. I'll sit with crystals and meditate. I will sit and talk to my guides and empty my mind and ask them to just send me images or words or anything they want me to know. So I do that in addition as well. But the first ones I mentioned are every single day.
Nice, thank you. That's a very rich practice, I think, and as you mentioned, it's very important for all of those who will do energy work. But I would, I guess, also add anyone really who can start doing this. It would be very beneficial, just in daily life, because I feel like a lot of us are very sensitive to others' energy, but we might not realize. And oftentimes, actually, just going to someone for a session, whether it's Reiki or tarot reading, is when the reader or the practitioner might pick that up from us and maybe, give us some pointers and say, look, have you noticed feeling different when you're around other people? It's a, it's very, it's good to take notice, I suppose, and maybe just keep that in mind, that it's not just for us who do this work, but also those that receive, who are clients, I suppose, or who are just, just sensitive, I suppose.
Definitely. Sensitive people, empaths, and there will be people listening who do absolutely identify in that way. And if you're the sort of person that goes to a group event like a festival or somewhere where there's lots of people and feels very drained afterwards and almost over emotional or upset or teary, you've probably picked up lots of other people's energy. Or you may find there's one person in particular, could be a friend or a family member, who every time you spend time talking to them, even if it's on the phone, it doesn't have to be in person, you feel drained afterwards. And that's because you've absorbed their energy. So there will be a lot of people, I suspect, listening to this who fall into that category, and protection would be really beneficial to them.
Yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to add one more thing. I feel that some of us might be, I suppose the word is codependent, maybe not codependent slash people pleasing. And we might not recognize it at first, that it's the you know the expression peer pressure,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of us, I think, kind of are a victim. I don't know, a victim of peer pressure. I don't like the word victim, but you know, we might act like, or always be in response to what others want and what they ask us to do, and it's difficult for us to sit in our own energy in a sense of, well, what do I really want? What is my body telling me I should do, or I shouldn't? What is good for me? Because we just keep being pulled by others everywhere. So that's one other, I suppose, aspect in a way that it can, that our sensitivity can come across. I just thought I'll put it out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so the other thing I just wanted to pick up, because you've mentioned twice how you work with your spirit guides. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more as to how that even started, and also who are spirit guides, for those that might not be aware, how maybe you have been made aware of them in your life. Yeah, and anything else that you have to add to that.
Sure. So with spirit guides, I mean, I hadn't even heard that term until about 3 years ago when I started learning Reiki, and I started to learn mediumship. I found a circle at the local spiritualist church, and people were talking about spirit guides. Didn't have a clue. I had to Google it. So
Yeah.
I understand that before we're born, we reside in the spirit world as a spiritual being, and we decide our life. We say, I want to come to the earth to experience life as a human and experience polarities and light and dark and good and bad and everything else that we don't experience in spirit. And I want to come and experience a lifetime on linear time. And this is the sort of thing that I want to do. I want to come and be a doctor, or I want to be a healer, or whatever we decide. And we will have somebody assigned to us who will help us with that journey. And it's usually an ascended being. It might be somebody that's walked the earth with us, maybe in a past life, or maybe they've walked the earth before, but they've ascended the spiritual realms, and now they're at a stage where they want to help other people. It's a very selfless task, because you're devoting all of your energy to this one person to get them where they need to get to. And we've agreed with our spirit guide, I need to do this, I need to do that and the other. We do have free will around that, but generally speaking, there are certain things that are meant to happen, and our path is meant to go in a certain direction, and it's all decided before we come here by us and our guide. So we're assigned this one main spirit guide who will be with us from birth to death, and we
Right.
will be reunited with them when we move back into the spiritual realms. In addition, we have other spiritual guides that come to us at various points in our life to help us with certain tasks. And that might be, if we're learning a musical instrument, there'll be a guide who will come and help us by helping us raise our creative energy, or give us inspiration, or just help us with our learning if we're learning an instrument, for example. So we will have more than one guide. I always talk to my healing guide when I'm connecting to Reiki, because I feel like I have somebody who is allocated to me just for that purpose, who perhaps hasn't always been in my life, but they're here now because I'm learning to heal people. We all have spirit guides. I also personally believe that our animals do as well. The guides will help us. They're there for us to call on at any moment, but we don't always know how to communicate with them or how to receive messages, and that's something anybody can learn. I'm going to reference YouTube again because it's a great source of free information, but there are Meet Your Spirit Guide meditations on YouTube that you can listen to and find somebody's voice that resonates with you, that feels relaxing, and follow the instructions. And we basically go into a very deep meditative state where we are more open to receiving their guidance, because our human mind has sort of quietened down a bit, so that we're not thinking logically and trying to work things out. We quieten the mind, we get into that meditative space, and then we can start to receive their messages. we'll be receiving messages from our spirit guides all the time, but we may not recognize that that's where they've come from. We may feel it like a hunch or somebody giving us a nudge in a certain direction. People will talk about maybe driving into work one morning, they felt the need to take a different route and they couldn't logically explain why, because it didn't make any logical sense, but they followed that nudge, that instinct to take a different route. And then they turn the news on and hear there's been an accident on the route they'd normally take. And that's quite common. And I believe that those messages are coming from our spirit guides, but they're not physically sat next to us in the car, so we don't recognize it's coming from them, but we have no way of explaining where it's come from. It's just a nudge. I call them nudges, but I believe they come from my guides.
Yeah, right. And then that's where it just really, it's good to practice our attention, I suppose, to any subtle energies and thoughts and feelings that might be coming in that sometimes we might be doubting or second guessing or just, completely not listening to because it's not loud, I suppose, as our thoughts sometimes can be, or our logical mind can be a lot louder, right, than our intuition. So, yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. And as you said, just going to YouTube and just looking out for some practices to start with for anyone who has never done it before and maybe is thinking about trying it out. Thank you. So I was wondering, you have mentioned before that we come to this life, we have decided more or less what our life is kind of meant to be in a large sense. Is that something that you would call a soul purpose? Is there a purpose to our soul coming to this earth? And if so, is this something that maybe people could find out through a tarot reading, for example, if they were wondering, or if they feel a little bit lost or directionless?
Yeah, I believe it's the same thing, the soul purpose. It's also sometimes called a soul contract. The contract's a very human word, so I'm not so keen on that. So, I'm sure we didn't physically sign on the dotted line to do the things we did, but we do have an agreement that we want to experience certain things, and our guides are there to make sure we do. So yeah, you can use tarot. Tarot is a great tool for discovering your soul purpose, and you'll have probably more than one as well. You might come to earth and want to experience parenthood and have children, and then once your children have grown up and moved out, you think, well, what's my purpose now? What am I here for? And then you might learn a craft, or you might learn music, or you might learn Reiki or something. There'll be something that is your purpose at that stage of your life. So I believe we have like a blueprint that we come here and say, these are the experiences I want to have. And that's our soul purpose. But it might be more than one.
Right.
So in my earlier years, my purpose at the time was to do the jobs I did, live in the places I lived in. It's all got me to where I am now, and I wouldn't be here now if I hadn't had all the experiences I've had. So it's all part of this grander plan, I believe, to get us to where we want to be. But there's many aspects to it. There's many experiences we want to have when we come here.
Right. Yeah. And thank you. Like you said, it's more than one, most likely. So if you come for a reading, then it's not necessarily going to tell you what you are, what you're going to do what you have to do in your life going forward, kind of thing. It just depends on where you are in your life, at what stage, and what the purpose is at that point, really.
I think it's also what's useful for you to know at the time. If I'd had a reading when I was 20 and somebody said you're going to be a Reiki master, knowing my personality, I'd have straight away started learning it and got all excited and thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do. but I wasn't destined to become a Reiki master until I was much older. So what benefit would that have been to tell me at 20 that that's what I'm going to be doing? At the time, I needed to know what my next move was. Where am I going to be moving to next? Where am I going to live next? That was more important than what's my ultimate purpose, because it's too far ahead. And my purpose has been everything that I've experienced. Everything that I've come here and done has been for a reason. It's all part of the plan.
Yeah, and also I wanted to add with the purpose, I think a lot of us might think it often revolves around either our direction in life or a career or the work that we do. We kind of put this word, the meaning of purpose, into something that we almost share with the world, I suppose, but it's not necessarily the point. Right? It's like you said, experiencing parenthood or experiencing something because the purpose in itself is to experience life. Right? So, yeah, I just thought I'd touch on that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, my purpose for the last 23 years, myself and my husband have rescued dogs. So that's a really big part of my life here, is adopting rescue dogs. But equally, it's the Reiki, and it's the tarot. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, it's never just one thing, right? It's like through everything that you do in life, you learn something, you experience something more, and that just enriches your soul and enriches, well, in human terms, your personality, I suppose, or how you live. And speaking of animals, can I ask what your beliefs are about animals? And do they have a soul? Do they, when they pass away, do they also stay in the spirit realm? Have you had any experiences, perhaps, with connecting with the animals from the other side?
Yes, I have, and it's something that I have given a lot of thought to, because I've got so many angel dogs now up there, and I've connected with pretty much all of them through an animal communicator. So an animal communicator will connect with animals on the earth and in spirit. What they're doing when they're communicating is connecting with the soul of the animal. So if they're connecting with the soul of the animal, then that means the animal has a soul. And the soul
Yeah.
might be within the animal on the earth plane, or they might have returned to spirit. And it's exactly the same as connecting with a human. You just get different sorts of images, and images of bones and balls and dog beds and things like that, because they need to communicate with us that this is really, this is your dog I'm connecting with, and they used to sleep here, and they used to have this view, and they were called this, and this is the color of their favorite toy. That's how they let us know it's them. So yeah, I believe animals have a soul exactly the same as we do. I believe they have guides. Their life purpose, I think, is quite different, particularly companion animals like dogs and cats. I think they come here to help us learn unconditional love. I think they come here to help us learn to nurture and care for something, and to enrich our experience as well as theirs. But yeah, absolutely, I don't see there being any difference in terms of their energy. Animals benefit from Reiki. In fact, they kind of benefit from it more, because they're very aware of energy. People will often talk about, their dog suddenly starts barking at fresh air, or the cat freaks out, and you often think, well, what are they seeing that we're not? I think their connection's a lot stronger. I think they're very spiritual beings.
Yeah, perhaps I think they're just not inundated with the human mind, animals, so therefore they're a lot more open because they don't overthink. I'm guessing, like, I've never been an animal, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Because our mind in our human life, our mind really, really interferes with that soul connection to our spirit guides, or our soul in general, or our higher self. And so also that's why you say that a dog might bark in the looking at the air, or just there's nothing and they bark. But as a comparison, children might have imaginary friends, or they might come to their parents with a message saying, "Oh, grandma said this and that," or when grandma has already passed away. So it's kind of similar in that sense that they're not yet, maybe let's call it, imprinted with the society and our ways of living, and their mind, their logical mind hasn't come into play so much just yet. Kids, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think children are very, very intuitive and open. And I was so sensitive as a child. I saw the ghost or the spirit, if you like, of a horse when I was 6, clear as day, right in front of me in my bedroom, frightened the life out of me. And I heard it as well. I heard its hooves on the ground. I saw it carrying a cart. It was a horse and cart, and then suddenly it appeared in front of me. And I think you're right. It's the logical mind that gets in the way, convinces us we're making it up, convinces us that's not possible because it's not solid, which means it doesn't exist. But children don't have that. They just accept it as if it's normal. I've just been talking to grandma. They don't even really know that grandma's not alive. To them, it's just a conversation, which I think is fantastic. So what can we do to stop ruining it when the children get to adulthood? To keep that innocence and that pure acceptance is wonderful.
And I feel the beginning for any parent who's aware is to just not negate it to start with, right? Because I suppose you can only control to a certain extent what happens in your own home. I suppose when the child then goes off to school and experiences life, that's a different story. But as long as they have the support at home as much as possible, then it might be a lot easier for them to not shut it down. Although, speaking of shutting it down, it never is completely shut down, right? Because you mentioned at the beginning that you were into tarot, you were into palm reading when you were a teenager, and then you kind of like left it. Could you actually say a little bit more about that at all? If you just changed your mind, or just, I don't know, if there is anything.
I think life just got busy. I don't think it was ever a conscious decision that I'm not really into that anymore. I went to college, I studied, I then got a job, I found a partner, I moved in with him. Life moved on at such a rapid pace that it just wasn't really on the agenda anymore. I was just living my life, working, going out, partying throughout my 20s, like most people do, I guess. It wasn't, it didn't feel important to me anymore at that stage. And I don't think you do lose it completely, but when I saw the apparition of a horse, that really scared me because I was only 6, and I think I did shut down that ability to see objectively spirit in front of me. Now I can see spirit in my mind now clairvoyantly, but I don't see them as if they're physically in front of me. And I might be wrong, but my belief is that it was too much for me to handle at that age. I was so sensitive. I mean, I didn't sleep for weeks afterwards. So I think maybe it was just, okay, she's not she's not quite ready. Or maybe I was meant to see it and be scared because I remembered it because of the fear around seeing it, because of the shock. I remember it now as clear as day. And I've had a reading where I discovered that I'd been with the horse in a previous incarnation, and we died together. So the horse was coming back to visit. And if I hadn't had that experience all those years ago, I wouldn't be remembering it now. So I probably needed it to be a bit scary so that it would be imprinted into my mind. But I do think I shut down that ability to see objectively at that point. Even now, if I turn around and saw a horse in my room, it would frighten me, even though I understand about spirit. And then I'd be worried that I was going to wake up in the night, open my eyes, and there'd be one over the bed or something. So I'd rather keep that shut down. I'm happy seeing it inside my head.
That's a good point. You did already mention it, but I was wondering if you feel like there was some sort of a reason, a purpose, a message behind the fact that the horse showed up. But as you say, it probably, there doesn't have to be anything super deep apart from the fact that, it reminds you, now you remember about it, you can talk about it, and you have a different understanding also based on, any work that you do now. And if you do a connect with spirit and you have the belief, I suppose is the what I'm trying to say, you have a bit of a stronger belief because you had that experience. And the fact that you said, I think, that you died with a horse in a past life. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that also kind of confirms and shows an example of how animals can be connected with us, right? Yeah. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you about your Udemy courses. So you mentioned that you teach some spiritual practices in there. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've got one that is pretty much ready. It takes so long to get it all ready and finalized, but it's pretty much ready to go live, and that's going to be the first one that I've published. So that one is about how to let go of whatever's no longer serving you and how to create a regular practice. So it's a 21-day course that you can repeat it over and over again. It doesn't have to just be 21 days, but in order for something to become a habit, it needs to be repeated at least 21 times. So that's why I thought, well, okay, I'll use that 21 days, and every single day the person taking the course they will be given an affirmation on what they need to release for that day and a meditation then to go into, and then they'll journal about what they experienced. And then at the end of the day, just 5 minutes a day, they will then reflect back on anything else that might have come up during the day, any triggers, any words, any feelings that they were given. And they're releasing different things all the time. So it might be releasing things from the past that were painful. It might be releasing people that no longer serve you and that you need to cut energetic ties with. There's all sorts of things in there. I try to really mix it up and think about all of the different ways we can be held back by emotions related to things that don't serve us anymore, or beliefs, or even if it's, lack of confidence or self-sabotage or imposter syndrome or people pleasing, like you mentioned earlier, that's in there as well. I release people pleasing. So it's a 21-day spiritual practice, and it guides people how to do that and gives them all the tools they need. And then hopefully they'll go on to continue with that and create that daily practice of releasing and letting go, because only by releasing what's holding us back do we create space for what we want to bring in. There's no good just manifesting all the time. I want this, I want that, I want the other. Because if we are held back by stuff from the past, it's not going to come in because we're just blocking our energy. So this is a way of teaching people how to do it themselves. You can do this with Reiki as well, but this is a way of empowering people to do it themselves, to set up their own practice. And then I've got plans for many more courses. I want to teach Reiki and tarot as well. I've got so much I can share. So there will be more to come as well.
Thank you. That's great. And so if you could let us know, where can people find you if they would like to contact you?
Okay, so I'm on Facebook as facebook.com/Melanie Stevens Healing. I'm on Instagram as the same thing, so it's at Melanie Stevens Healing. I am setting up a TikTok page, but it's really basic at the moment, so I will promote that when there's a bit more on there. I'm just trying to create some content for it. And my website is www.melanie-stevens.com. You can go onto the website to book a session, whether that's Reiki by distance or in person, or a tarot reading, or there's a link to my calendar. If you're not sure what help you want and you think coaching might be the way forward, you can book in a free discovery call and we'll have a conversation about how I can help.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you very much, Mel. I'll put all the links to all of your your groups and your website and any other information that you might want to share. I'll put them in the show notes. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll maybe see you next time for another interview if you're up for it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kat.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and leave a review. You can find me on www.soullevelhealing.com. Bye for now.